Welcome to Pennsylvania in Focus. I'm Christina Lengel. With me today is Pennsylvania editor Kristen Smith. How are you, Kristen?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks. We're going to talk about unions today and whether or not they should be allowed to donate towards, not directly to political campaign. Can you explain to me how unions exactly interact with political campaigns?
Sure. So government unions in Pennsylvania have what critics call a unfair, unethical advantage in that they can deduct membership dues from a member's paycheck. And unions have long said we don't use this money to fund political candidates directly. The Commonwealth Foundation did a deep dive into how government unions have been spending their money since 2007, but more specifically in the last campaign cycle from 23 to 24. And Commonwealth Foundation is very openly critical of government unions and this ability of theirs to collect dues through paycheck deductions, because to be clear, other membership organizations donate to political causes and candidates all the time. That's not of issue. What is of issue is that they can use a public taxpayer funded system to take this money and then drive it out to political causes that, number one, don't represent all of their members. And number two, are in their estimation funneled inappropriately or funneled, I don't want to say illegally, but funneled unethically, let's just say. One of the ways that they do this to get around the notion, according to Commonwealth Foundation, is that they will donate to voting drives and super PACs and other campaign adjacent causes. And then those super PACs, for example, will turn around and then donate specifically to a candidate. And what the Commonwealth Foundation found is that 95% of the time, this money ended up supporting a Democratic candidate. That's not entirely a surprise. There's nothing groundbreaking in that discovery. But when you look at it in the broader context of, okay, not only do they have this advantage of collecting the membership dues, but now you have to take the next step to say the union bosses believe that 9 in 10 of their members agree wholeheartedly with their decisions about who to support and what candidates to support. And that's, obviously that seems unreasonably high. I would argue perhaps depending on the union and who they represent, it could be 9 in 10, but we definitely have seen in the last election cycle that there were unions that didn't even endorse a candidate. Most notably, the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. They did not endorse a candidate because they said that their membership was too split. I mean, and this is after decades of supporting the Democratic ticket. And the Teamsters president came out on the Republican National Convention stage and said the reason why is because he said in his words, America workers aren't stupid and that they believe that Trump stands up for them. So at least in this particular moment, there is not a unified feeling among members. And so what the Commonwealth Foundation is saying is not only that this isn't fair, and this is something that members should be aware of, that this is where their money is going.
So what have the unions, have they responded to the Commonwealth Foundation or to you about this issue?
Typically, the unions do not respond when the Commonwealth Foundation releases criticism or other conservative-leaning law firms or anything of that sort. Now, last year, there was a complaint filed with the state regarding the way that the Pennsylvania State Association of PSEA, which is the Pennsylvania State Association of Educators. It represents teachers, both current and retired. And the complaint from the Freedom Foundation alleged that they had improperly funneled $1.5 million to Governor Josh Shapiro's gubernatorial campaign in 2022, and that they did this through PACs and organizations, including the Democratic Governors Association. And like I said, those were filed with the AG's office and a few other state offices, and investigations were opened. So those offices found some credibility in what they were saying. Now that those investigations are ongoing. However, in that case, the teachers union did respond and say that this is untrue, that they did not funnel this money and that their money has been sent and used appropriately to fund appropriate organizations. Again, that gets back to the idea that they can put it into super PACs and other groups legally that can then turn around and donate it to whoever they want, most likely Democrats. So there's been some acknowledgement from unions that, yes, they're, and I wouldn't even say some acknowledgement. They're very open about who they support. It's a big to do. Every single campaign cycle, they come up and say who they support. And you can see, if you look back when Shapiro was running, he swears he was with the union every other week. And he's considered someone who really plays well with unions. And that's something that makes him a really strong Democratic candidate for 2028, because not only will he get the union vote, but police officers, law enforcement, moderates, he's really seen as someone who continues to bridge that gap that's growing wider and wider and wider between Republicans and Democrats lately.
Is there any indication that unions have been influencing policy much based on this in Pennsylvania?
Certainly, I think they've had a very strong influence, at least over the Democratic Party and what they've advocated for decades. Unions obviously are very much about increasing teacher pay, for example, or protecting prevailing wages. They are very anti-charter school and anti-school choice measures. There's a lot of things. I mean, and I'm just scratching the surface. There's a ton of things that they promote, higher minimum wages, basically anything that the Democratic Party supports, the unions are usually in lockstep with. And that's something that, like I said, it's always been known and understood. But as our legislature has become more purple, let's just say, that these votes and these ideologies matter. So a lot of the money that the union invested in the last cycle was into state and local races with the intent reason of expanding Democrat influence in the House and Senate. Now, the Senate is still within Republican hands by several seats, but Democrats are slowly making gains. And then in the House, they've continued to hold on to their one-seat majority, which is notable considering how well Republican candidates did in 2024, thanks to Trump. I mean, they swept statewide offices. You think that there would be a chance that in their contested races that they would have gained some seats or at least gotten their one up. So there's certainly that money. Democrats don't want to lose union money. That's part of why that they really don't step out of line with what they want and need. They do not want to lose that money. And so you're not going to see that change. It doesn't matter how many numbers the Commonwealth Foundation comes up with. The only thing that could really change, I think, to make the Commonwealth Foundation, and to their point, is to eliminate that ability to have payroll deductions of membership dues. I think that if they could achieve that, and that's something Republicans agree with, if they could achieve that, I think that they would consider that a big win. And depending on where you are as a union member, you might appreciate that too, because you don't know what your money's supporting and you may very well disagree. So that's kind of where the policy is at now. With that, Democrats in control of the House and the governor's mansion, we're not going to see that. That's just not going to happen. But, it's something that could happen should the balance of power shift one way or the other. So we'll have to keep an eye on it.
All right. Well, we will be keeping an eye on it. So stay tuned at thecentersquare.com/Pennsylvania.